Russia's top diplomat is a man on a mission. Sergei Lavrov is at the forefront of Moscow's efforts to promote itself as an international power broker, with the Kremlin calling for a new world order.
Ответственные лидеры должны сделать выбор. Надеюсь, что выбор будет сделан в пользу созидания демократического и справедливого мирового порядка. Если хотите, назовите его пост-Вест.
And in the game of geopolitics, Russia has become a major player in Syria. It's provided Bashar al-Assad's regime with military might, from troops on the ground to strikes from the skies, and helped the government secure a seat at the negotiating table. It may be trying to expand its reach. Last week, Russia hosted Kurdish groups from Turkey, Iran, Iraq and Syria for a conference on the Middle East. On the same day, it brought multiple players involved in the Afghan conflict together for peace talks. Russia has been cultivating contacts with the Taliban as a countermeasure against Daesh, a move which isn't backed by all of the other parties, or a key player which wasn't invited to join the talks.
Mr. Chairman, I agree there have been an increase in external actors interfering in the Afghan attainment of peace and stability.
And the Russian involvement?
The Russian involvement this year has become more difficult.
Moscow's displays of military muscle and diplomatic might in Syria have taken place while the country has endured its worst recession in 2 decades. It is slowly emerging from that economic crisis. But the fall in energy prices and Western sanctions have meant less money and fewer jobs for ordinary Russians. The World Bank warned last year that the number of poor people in Russia would rise to more than 20 million, out of a population of about 140 million. In the face of such immense domestic challenges, can this really be the era of a resurgent Russia on the foreign policy front? Natalie Pohonen, The Newsmakers.
He's been called everything from a fascist to Vladimir Putin's brain. Well, I'm joined now from Moscow by political philosopher Alexander Dugin, the leader of the International Eurasian Movement. Thanks so much for joining us, sir. First of all, our condolences on the loss of your ambassador to the UN, Ambassador Churkin. We're very sorry about that news. Now, let me ask you, the International Eurasian Movement, what does that mean?
International Eurasian Movement, it is the plan to create the different world, not a globalist world with one pattern imposed on everybody, on every culture, but to create the multipolar world where Eurasian civilization, represented by Russia and by other Eurasian civilizations, should be free to develop its own systems, its own values, its own traditions. And all that we cannot affirm and defend under attack of globalization. And now Eurasianism, it is idea of orientation on the deep identity, on the deep identity of every culture, every people. In our case, in case of Russia, it means that we need to defend our own Eurasian identity. That is not European and that is not Asian. It is Eurasian. I think that is the main goal of International Eurasian Movement. It is to promote such attitude and to fight for multipolar world against unipolar world.
But didn't we try this in the 20th century with the Soviet Union? A Russian-dominated Eurasian identity. It failed. The Soviet Union. It was finished. It didn't work.
Yes, absolutely, because it wasn't Eurasian ideology. Eurasian ideology is not totalitarian. It is not based on the Western pattern, because communism was based on the Western pattern. It was ideology imitated from the West, and all the ideas of social progress, of technological development, all the class war, all that was created in the West and applied to the Russia. And the result was destruction of Russian identity. Eurasian tries to Eurasianism. Eurasia should be based on the traditional values and not on the communist or socialist or artificial values.
Sure.
That is a completely different approach.
Right. Okay. So I want to keep this moving on. Now, you would be aware of George Friedman, who wrote The Next 100 Years. He's a geopolitical forecaster, much like yourself, but from the United States. He's written many books. A lot of people follow him. Last month, I interviewed him, and I asked him about Russian power and about Russia becoming more and more powerful. Have a listen to what he had to say to me.
Let's not fantasize about the power of Russia. It is an oil exporting country. The price of oil has fallen. Its economy is in shambles. Although it performed reasonably well in Syria, it certainly has not solved the Syrian problem. It has a very small footprint. Russia is a very weak country pretending to be much stronger than it is.
Russia is a very weak country pretending to be much stronger than it is. What do you say to that, sir?
I think that we need to make a kind of reality check. Russia was really a very weak country in the 90s. With Yeltsin, with oligarchs, with Westerners, it was weak. But it is not anymore weak. And with Putin, we began to change this situation, to reaffirm our country, our state, as the pole of power. And we could make a reality check. What happened in Georgia after attack against Tskhinvali? What happened in Crimea after attack against Russian identity in Ukraine? So we now are very strong and country with not so good economy, I would say, and with many weak points. But our traditional spirit, our army, our leadership, our mobilization of our country in favor of sovereignty and defense of our identity, it's stronger and stronger. I think that the Western is a decay. The Western civilization is falling apart, and it is losing itself, its identity. And I think that now it's time to think about Western weakness, about the weakness of the West, and not point out that we are weak. Maybe we are not the strongest country, but we are one of the strongest. Maybe we are not first country in the world, but we belong to the club of the third-class countries of the world.
And my apologies again for interrupting, and I know there's a slight delay. My apologies again. I know there's a slight delay. Is this why you believe that Turkey and Russia and maybe even the Iranians need each other more than they individually need the United States? Do you want these countries to come together to create that answer to the unipolar world that you talk about?
Absolutely. You have exposed very good my ideas. I think that Russia, being great Eurasian country, needs now the partnership and strategic partnership with Turkey that is as well Eurasian countries. But we could not reorganize and solve our regional problems. We could not reorganize Middle East without the help and participation of Iran. Three of us, Turkey, Iran and Russia, we need each other. We are three empires in the past. We were three empires. And we were traditional empires with different identities, but we were on traditional side. And United States, it postmodern country. Today it will be bothered much more by itself with Trump. And it is the chance for us to strengthen our context, to create a real strategical partnership between Turkey, Iran, and Russia. It is the moment for that. And I think that helping together, we could achieve our goals. Each countries of us, each three of us, cannot achieve its own goal, cooperating, because we have the keys for Syria. We have the keys together, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, for Iraq. We have the keys for the Middle East. And if we not follow Greater Middle East project that has failed, absolutely failed, if we consider the situation realistically, basing on mutual help and common strategy, we could solve almost any problem in the Middle East.
Okay, let's talk about the United States for the moment and the new administration. There are many who believe that Steve Bannon, who's got Trump's ear, is inspired by you. In many ways, they compare him to you. They call you Putin's Rasputin, and Bannon has all sorts of connotations when it comes to Trump. They seem as inspired by you. You said after Trump's inauguration, quote, "Incredibly beautiful, one of the best moments of my life." At the moment in the United States, in the build-up to that election and after the election, there are tremendous divisions in the country. If not a real civil war, there seems to be a cultural civil war going on in the United States right now. Does that please you that that's happening in the US?
Absolutely. I'm happy with what is going on there. Not I'm happy with the civil war, but I'm happy that American people is awakening, in the process of awakening, because American people with Trump electoral campaign has remarked that United States of America as a national state was hijacked by globalist elite, and this globalist elite that has nothing to do with American people, American history, American values, they try to use United States of America in their supranational international goals. So that is a very good sign. What about Bannon? I appreciate him. I consider him very interesting political thinker. He has mentioned my name sometimes, but I don't think he is really influenced by my books and my thoughts, because he is very particular. We share some ideas with him. I am very glad that the people like Steve Bannon now are in administration of new American president. We share some points with him, some points we consider differently, but what is sure, he is traditionalist. He shared the conservative understanding of the history, of the culture, of identity, and that's exactly what I believe in. So maybe with such traditionalist trend in politics and culture and the strategy, we could achieve much better understanding between United States and Russia. Before, we considered United States as the same as the synonymous of globalization, of global elite, and now the situation is changed. And I don't think that Trump will be unconditionally pro-Russian. Absolutely no, and I'm not expecting that. I'm sure, on the other hand, that he will try to concentrate on American affairs, of domestic affairs, and he will try to make America America again, because before it wasn't America, it was a kind of globalist hub to impose on civilization and humanity its completely irrational, radical, anti-human values, so-called gay marriages, transhumanism, feminism, aggressive feminism. And I think now there is sane America, Trump's America, against ill America, sick America. And I wish to real and sane and conservative American America to win this battle, to win this struggle. With all my heart, I am on the side of American conservatives that try to make America great again. And I suggest to do the same for Russia and for Turkey. Let us make Russia great again. Let us make Turkey great again. That is how I understand Trump and his victory.
Sir, I wish we had more time, and I hope you'll sit down with me for a longer interview in the not too distant future. Unfortunately, we are out of time for now. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Alexander Dugin.